You may state your name and address, and we'd love to hear from you.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Kathy Cottrell, and I just wanted to say hello. I'm a new member to the board of the Friends of Gumbo Limbo, and I just wanted to come and represent Gumbo Limbo and thank everybody for their wonderful support at the recent Sea Turtle Day that we had. And we had about 3,000 guests come and enjoy that afternoon with us. We spent a lot of time talking with our guests about Next Gen Gumbo Limbo and just asking questions and learning from our guests what they enjoyed about Gumbo Limbo. And we also wanted to thank the commissioners here for allowing us to use the Strand for extra parking, which was greatly needed. We appreciate that. And just hope to see everybody again at the next year's event. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay, Andrea Stekla had signed a card and she wants to speak.
Yeah, let Joe go for me, Catalina.
Okay.
I'll sign the card too.
You did it or you did?
I did.
Go ahead for me.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Joe Pedalino. I live at 12121 North Ocean Boulevard. I know that Ocean Strand is not on the agenda and that you have not received official contact from the developer, nor have you received any official proposal. However, a developer has been discussing commercial development at Ocean Strand with several elected officials. I'm here to determine your mind on this issue. Ocean Strand was purchased by district commissioners like yourself for the specific purpose to prevent commercial development. Specific purpose to prevent commercial development. This responsibility has been passed down to subsequent commissioners and now rests with you. Ordinance 5228 prohibits commercial development on all public lands on the barrier island, whether owned by the city or by the district. However, it does not preclude the district from selling Ocean Strand to a private developer. Over the years, the city and district have been approached by developers to maintain their viability of using public lands for development, and especially when it deals with Ocean Strand. All of these proposals have been rejected. I'm sure this developer believes that he is planting seeds on fertile soil because recent articles have indicated the district's need for revenue to complete proposed projects. And here lies my concern. Developers will come to you as their friend, their benefactor, especially in the time of need. They will tell you how they're going to solve all your problems. They will show possible beneficial conditions on how their project will improve the community lifestyle and the quality of life. They will attempt to seduce you into with the prospect of millions of dollars made, tens of millions of dollars, that project will bring to the community. Their business model is based because it works and has been extremely successful in the past, except when it deals with affecting public lands. This has recently been demonstrated by the wildflower referendum. Our citizens and elected officials cherish our public parks, beaches, and recreational areas. Our public lands are the heart and soul of our community. They make Boca Raton a very special place in which to live and to raise our family. Ocean Strand is one of these very special and unique places. It is very unique. It's in a perfect location. Its value cannot be measured in dollars because it can never be replaced, nor can it be duplicated. It should be preserved and developed as a park and recreational area for the entire community to enjoy. You, our commissioners, have been excellent stewards of our public lands and have continued to safeguard our legacy now and hopefully in the future. Please don't change. Please don't change. Keep the course. And thank you for the service to our community.
Thank you, Joe. Andrew?
Hi, my name is Andrea Steckloff. I live at 2121 North Ocean Boulevard in Boca Towers. I have been before this committee numerous times for numerous problems with Ocean Strand and the, quote, development of it. At the last meeting that I was at, where you had it in a great big adjoining room, we were having landscape architects that were going to turn Ocean Strand into a park. And I'm trying to figure out what in the world happened to all of those dollars that you spent on the development and nothing has ever been built. And then we have to hear it through a newspaper that there is a developer looking to put a Ritz-Carlton of 11 stories. And I thought Boca, number one, had a ceiling limit for the amount of height levels that the buildings could be, plus a parking garage and a marina. And I'm trying to figure out how they're going to be getting away with this when we can't even add 2 docks to our condominium. Something is wrong here and needs to be protected. We've got wonderful property next door, and we were under the impression from the last meeting that all of us got together that Gumbo Limbo was going to be joined to this project so that the children that come to Gumbo Limbo would have access to this park. The only thing we were concerned about was that homeless people might be living in there, and that was our only major concern. But if it's put together correctly, it will be fine. The last thing we need is a huge 11-story hotel, a very high-end hotel, plus an 11-story condominium tower on A1A. It's hard enough now to get out of our parking lots and making a right or a left-hand turn. Are we going to have to put a traffic light in front of our unit and then 100 feet down the way have another traffic stoplight? Because people are going to be going into the, quote, Ritz-Carlton? To me, the Ritz-Carlton is not for the masses of Boca. It's for the extremely wealthy of Boca, when you're paying over $25 a night just to park your car. I've stayed in Ritz's all over the world. I'm sure that the developer has a gorgeous hotel plan. I used to be a hotel designer, and this would be a wonderful idea, but just not on the Ocean Strand property. That property has protected flora and fauna and is a beautiful piece of land, and to destroy it and then have tunnels built under A1A to have all those people have access to a free beach, that basically the beach and parks, if they sell this property, which I'm totally against, would create major havoc. Also, I'm facing north, and I'm going to be looking right into one of those condos or one of those homes, one of those hotel units. And I don't want to do that. I pay dearly for a corner unit so that I could see the ocean and the intercoastal. And I've been there for 18 years, and I've been in front of all of the commissioners time after time through different items that have been brought up to take over Ocean Strand. We've got to put this to rest. At the last meeting we were all at, all the commissioners voted against ever selling this to a private person. And once it's sold to a private person, we are basically SOL. And at that point, the Ritz-Carlton can come in and do anything they want. We have no recourse at that point. I'm begging you to please listen to what we're asking you from Boca Towers, to please protect this property, to do what we all were told was being done and make it into a park. I don't understand why it hasn't been done. It's been at least 2 years since we've been at that meeting, and we've heard nothing. And then the next thing we hear is basically a newspaper article saying that there's going to be a Ritz-Carlton built and that the developer has no desire to talk to any of the residents of Boca Towers. I'm sorry, but that's just not fair. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Andrew. Mr. McWalter?
Jack McWalter, 1100 Northeast 2nd Terrace. Thank you. I want to thank you for your service. I think a lot of you don't realize that we deeply respect the work that you're doing in the city. Probably it's one of the most important, probably, work because you're protecting our parks and our beaches, and we deeply appreciate it. I was going to talk about Ocean Strand, but they just covered it, so I don't need to. My question is very basic. How do we get a copy of the proposal from the developer for Ocean Strand? Can that be made public, or?
There is no proposal.
I'm sorry?
I don't have a proposal.
Okay, well, I was just curious how the newspaper somehow got out there with all these details and nobody seemed to know. But, okay, thank you. And the second thing is, is it possible to get a copy of the letter that you sent to the city regarding Boca National, in terms and conditions? Is that public, or is that possible to get a copy of that?
Really? Is that all right? Sure.
Oh,
The one I sent to the mayor?
the one you sent to the city council regarding the terms and conditions of Boca National?
I recently sent a letter to Mayor Singer, and copies went to the city council people, yes.
Oh, I can get it from them.
Or you can get it from us, we'd be happy to share
Oh,
it.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Be happy.
I was going to talk about Ocean Strand. I won't.
Andrea, did you want to speak again? Can you come up here, please? Acoustics aren't great here.
Okay. Andrea Steckloff again. If you're telling us that you haven't seen a copy of the proposal, can you tell me how 2 city council members have already seen it? A preliminary?
There have been discussions, but I have seen no written.
Has anybody else on the commission seen any proposal, any preliminaries?
I did. I mean, I saw a big, it was an old diagram. It was like 5 years old. And, yeah, they kind of said, look, this is, the only thing I saw is they came and presented, this is a concept, and basically it was a very old diagram that they came to the table with. Saying 2 towers, and they're quizzing basically of what's going on. Maybe that's how it all starts. I don't know.
Well, the last time we saw that quote proposal, it was listed for like 4 homes. It was never listed as condominiums. That was what was said at least 5 years ago when we inquired about it.
If I might, I had a meeting with the people behind the Ritz-Carlton proposal, and I use proposal in quotes.
Right.
And I saw what Mr. Ernst saw. When I ran in 2012 initially, I was against any commercial development of Ocean Strand. I'm against it now. This is an OMDD issue as far as I'm concerned, over my dead body.
Thank you very, very much. I'm hoping the rest of the commissioners basically are in the same ilk as you are, because it would be a travesty to put one gorgeous hotel in the middle of a bunch of condos and homes, basically separated from everything else. Normally hotels, when the Ritz was built in Manalapan, South Palm Beach, it was all in a line of hotels. It wasn't set right in the middle of homes. This is wrong. I mean, you've got multi-million-dollar homes on one side, you've got 2 towers of our condo on the other. And to all of a sudden have this explode on you. Granted, I'm sure people would love to have a Ritz in town, but definitely not there. There's land way down in South Boca, which is for sale. Let the developer buy that. It's ample room to build 3 Ritz-Carltons with dockage space. So I'm begging you all to please not let this go through. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrea. Is there anyone else who would like to get up and speak? Joe, are you coming up back up?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one question.
Joe Pedalino, 2121 North Ocean Boulevard. I haven't moved in 5 minutes. My concern is not development because 5228 prevents development. My concern is, would you ever entertain selling a property to a private developer, knowing that he's going to develop it, but you do have that ability to do that? 5228 does not preclude you from selling Ocean Strand to a private developer. That is my concern. That is my only concern.
I'll repeat what I said before. If it comes to commercial development, whether we did it, God forbid, or we sold it, I'm against selling it, okay? I want that property to remain in the public domain for the use of the residents of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District. I don't want to see a condominium tower. I don't want to see a hotel tower. I don't want to see underground parking. I don't want to see a tunnel to the beach. I want to see that that property stays with the Beach and Park District. That's my opinion. I can't speak for the other commissioners, but that's my opinion.
Will the other commissioners speak on that?
Anybody else want to speak?
I mean, I'll speak, but listen, here's my opinion on it. We went through this earlier with the Hatch Street tennis courts, and there was a proposal for Rafael Nadal that came in, and it was overwhelming, and there was no way that that was ever possible. But it was so overwhelming that we never got to understand what was there. And then later we found out that, hey, the tennis courts need to be redone, and the community center needs significant work. All these things have to be maintained. And so from my perspective, I want to look and see what's best for residents, for the community across the board. Does that mean selling Ocean Strand? No, not necessarily, and I have no interest in selling Ocean Strand, but I am interested in the financial condition of this district and how we are going, and the community, how we, the city and the district, are going to absorb this golf course and how we're going to avoid not raising taxes. We have a lot of things that collectively we have to do. I don't envision selling Ocean Strand, but I don't want to say yes, I don't want to say no, because I don't know what's out there and what's going on with the whole thing. I think we have to let all of our options come available and talk about them, and you will have a say, and I'll vote with what you guys want. If no one wants something, well, I'm not going to go against the public on that. But it has to be a collective, let these ideas bubble up. So it's okay, this is the right thing to do with these discussions to happen, but your presence here is far more important. It tells us what you want, and we'll do what you want. So that's my opinion.
I agree with Craig. I want to hear from you. I think all of us want to hear from you, and having you here, getting your emails, that tells us what the public wants. This is what government is all about in this country and in our community.
I think everyone has echoed my comments. Pretty much in line with Craig and Sue. We're here to represent the community, and we've always done that, and that's always going to be our intention.
Does anyone else want to speak about Ocean Strand or any other subject? Come to the mic.
Good evening, I'm Barry Tatro, 3088 Northwest 27th Avenue in Boca. I'm coming up here basically with questions, and 100% behind the don't sell that thing. It would be wrong on very many levels. I do have a question about, and I think this came up at last meeting, maybe as a surprise, but theoretically, Boca, the city of Boca is going to execute a closing in October on the course. That's this August. We've been talking all along about how to meld the closing of the Muni with the opening of this one, and I guess there were some assumptions that Boca, the city of Boca, would be amenable with that. But recent articles have suggested otherwise. If that happens, you're going to have a huge gap in the availability of municipal golf in Boca. And it's somewhat of a shock that we're dealing with that. And I don't know if anyone on your commission has talked with the city about maybe working some deal with GL. I know you're going to miss the dollars. Maybe that's something that could be negotiated, but it's very unsatisfactory. Really,
I think some of your organization is meeting with City Council this week.
I understand.
And we have a meeting hopefully set up for May 13th. We would like to be much sooner.
These are meetings with
the City Council, a joint meeting with the district and the City Council. But we wanted it sooner, but they keep pushing it back, and we have to go with what all of those people can get together. We're willing to jump out of our skin to get this meeting.
Yeah, we too. But it just seems as though the city's saying, we're getting that $65 million, when, but we're not sharing it with you. Good luck.
Well, we haven't heard yes or no.
Well, has anyone asked? Are you prohibited from negotiating with people and getting their intents?
We need to do that in the joint meeting. First of all, we have to get them to approve the design. That hasn't been done yet.
Well, they're not going to pay anything for it other than being a...
It's part of our interlocal agreement.
Okay.
We're not against you. We're with you. We're trying to do the best we can to help you.
I know. And you're up against a force of dollars. One last question to you is about the dollars and cents. Where are we going to get the money? Do we have money to begin construction if the permits were done and Tommy and his friends would be able to start digging dirt?
I'd have to say no at this point.
So
we have to find the money.
Why can't we find the money in the pockets of the city? That's you really need to hammer them. You're taking on way too much financially without help. For the people that are giving the money.
Barry, we're going to ask the city. We just have to.
Don't ask them.
We have to do it the right way.
Tell
them. Okay. Barry said.
Can I add to that, Susan?
Sure.
My limited time here, one thing I've learned is things go very slowly, okay? And they can go even slower if, everyone's not talking with one another. So our best bet is to have that joint city meeting, and it was asked then, and there was no response on it. But collectively, this body has to work with the city. And as you can see from the school that has gone up rather quickly, amazingly quick, that's a project that the city has a vested interest in.
Well, and so providing education for their kids.
But you know, it's a community, and the beautiful thing about Boca is we have this kind of dual authorities here. We have this district who is funding our beach and our parks, you know, and so the city has to kind of get their funding from us. So they have to kind of listen to us, and we get the opportunity to expand upon those things. And clearly, the golf course was a very aggressive financial move for this district to assume. But our view, and I think collectively, you know, since we've been on here, we saved 200 plus acres from further development. And that was something that we wanted to preserve golf also in Boca. So it's not something that is going to pay for itself, you know, magically like a business would or anything. It's very hard to justify a park, a basketball court, any of these kinds of things, a beach, but these are the things collectively that make Boca. So we will get to that city meeting. We will have that conversation of how we're going to do it. But I think part of it is what does the city want to be a better partner? And we want to be a better partner. Now we collectively own this property. We just haven't had that discussion. This message that went out was to give us a design. And so we got the best people we thought, after interviewing 17 architects, to pick a very good concept and a very good design. There's always someone who doesn't quite like whatever the design was. But I think we did a really good job of vetting it.
Yes, you did.
And
Absolutely.
It's expensive, far more expensive than I'd like, but you know what? This is Boca, and we want to make it work. But we haven't had that conversation with the city and get them really on board with this thing. And I think that's kind of where we're at. We're waiting for that. So that May 13th meeting is very important.
Oh, May 13th, I thought it was June 27th.
No, it's May 13th, and there's a backup date in April.
Oh, great, that's May 15th,
Well,
June, July, yeah, 2 months before the closure, or the closing of the,
Actually, Leanne's got the
I
project.
just talked to Susan Saxon, city clerk today, so our meeting right now is set for April 22nd. The city wants to add a workshop to their calendar to discuss it amongst themselves, because they can't discuss it privately, essential law. So the best date that they're looking at for a workshop happens to be April 22nd, so if that's the case, we're looking at May 13th for the joint meeting, and that's where they stand on it. So they're looking at workshopping this, and that's where we're at.
okay, one last question, or one last comment, how we be done here. If the city is going to play hardball with that money, obviously we don't know, we haven't had our joint meeting yet, what the discussions might be. But it just seems maybe they're pushing you to sell that property. Sell that property, we'll pay for the golf course, we'll pay for the Willow, we'll pay for something. And if there, and I think that's what we can call a nuclear option. The last thing we can do is sell that property, take our lumps, fund the golf course, be done with it, let them have their $65 million. I don't know, that's just the way I think. But they're going to push you towards that.
Mr. Petrov,
Yes, sir.
I do not feel like the city is pushing us to sell that property. At the very beginning of this process, they asked us for a number of public hearings. We've had probably more public hearings on this course and design than was originally thought, which caused delays. The first actual plans that we saw had to be modified again to provide some more detail, and we provide the city with the documents. I'm not sure, I think the original ILA that we signed with them gave them the prerogative to say, grace over the designs. I'm not sure why it's taken long in having to workshop the design, but they're unable to participate in our public hearings. I guess, you know, we did have on occasion a few of the councilmen come in and hear our presentation. The presentation's been on the website, but I understand there's still some feeling that there was a lack of knowledge about what was going on. At the very beginning, in the first meeting when we got the approval, we let them know that we would be needing a second tranche of funds. That hadn't changed. The closing of Boca Uni, when we heard that at our last meeting from Mr. Galanis, was the first that we had been informed that they were accelerating the closing. I heard comments that possibly might be extended, but that's a very third-party statement, so I don't know whether that's actually going to happen or not. we're as anxious as you are about developing it, the financing, and getting it underway. And the last thing we wanted to do was to try to have our course delay opening, and you guys leave that a golf course to play on. So we get it, and we appreciate your support through this process. And when we had this joint meeting, I think your presence should be known. We did have a joint meeting. We did ask them about peeling off some of the funds from Boca Muni sale, and it was referred to staff, and we haven't heard anything further in that regard. So we'll take some of the blame that we're not to where we should be, but I think that we're going to do our best to try to accelerate this. We wanted to have a meeting earlier than April 22nd, and that apparently wasn't possible with their schedule. So keep coming. Thank you for your comments, and we'll do the best we can.
Thank you. I know you will.
Would anyone else like to comment? Hearing none, public requests are now closed. We come to the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting held on March 4th, 2019. Do I hear a move to approve? You have to revise in your packets. Thank you, Steve.
Oh, second.
Okay, so seconded by Mr. Ernst. Any comments, any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Okay, we come to our regular business, and I'd like to welcome Mrs. Carol Perez from AGT Landscaping Land Design, and she has a wonderful presentation. All the commissioners have got the packets from Mrs. Perez. Welcome, Carol.
Hello, I'm going to give a brief step-by-step process of how we got to where we're at with the landscaping, and then hand it over to Carol to give you guys the details. So what we start with is once we sort of, get permission to do the golf course, Nick and I have driven the site several times, and we come up with a conceptual routing plan. The conceptual routing plan considers the existing trees. And so it's kind of a back and forth process. We look at all the good trees, we try to figure out where the corridors of the holes are, how we're adjusting them. And we base it on safety one, visual, and then the quality of trees. And so what we do is we sort of mark on sheets of paper, okay, this tree is good, this tree is a little weaker, can we take this tree out and remove this tree? I'm speaking of all the existing beautiful live oaks and ficus trees out there, the big quality stuff. So we go through this, multiple step process to try to really preserve every tree that we possibly can, and just laying the routing out so we're not having to move trees or take the trees out. Then we go through, so we write all that down on paper, we sort of identify it. We come up with a plan, and what we then did was we actually met with an arborist and a tree mover, and we literally went to each tree to look at the quality and see if they could physically move the tree. And some trees we have designated to be relocated, and they have big, cuts in them and stuff like that. And so, basically the tree mover will say, well, this particular tree, if you move it, it's going to die. There's little chance to do it. These trees run from, $3,000 to $6,000 per tree to move. So we're saving the majority of the big trees on the property, and we have on our plan to relocate about 60 after going through this process and identifying these 60 trees that could be moved. So what we do then is we say, okay, this is our sort of our base palette of how we're going to where these new trees are going to be relocated. It's based on safety first, and then we sort of what I do is I come up with landscape areas. And then Carol is tasked with trying to fill in these areas in between and around these big trees. And the hard part of what we're doing is we're trying to get things that match, like palettes. So an easy one would say, You wouldn't bring palm trees to the northeast, and you wouldn't bring the northeast trees down south. I mean, that's obvious, but there's tons of other trees that we use down here, and what we try to do is identify the palette of the trees that we can use, mixed in with the trees that we have and that we're relocating. And then we go through this process of really just kind of identifying, okay, if we're going to plant these trees, what are the pros and cons? Because there's a pros and a cons to every single species of trees out there. I mean, live oaks are our best trees, but they create a lot of shade, so you don't get a lot of grass on them. You know, you can go through every single tree that there is, and there's a pro and a con to it. Some of them, the con just may be they cost a lot of money. So we go through a very, very long process of developing sort of the concept of what we're going to do, and then how we're going to do it, and then I create this, you know, multiple layer CAD drawing of all these different areas, and then I identify to Carol what are the high priority safety trees, and so this may be, you know, trees against 95 that we need a lot of height that just sort of block falls. We also have to consider what kind of shade it creates on the golf course. So putting big trees behind greens that we know are, you know, east and west that are going to block the sun. So we have so much design criteria that we self-impose. And then, you know, what's the maintenance? I mean, how much does it cost to maintain a particular tree? You know, there's just all kinds of pros and cons. So Carol has the very difficult task of dealing with me, because the whole gamut of trees in our palette in South Florida, most of the time I'm telling her, no, we can't do that, because then we start considering playability, and if you can't find a golf ball, we don't want to sort of create areas where if you hit balls, you're looking for balls, it's taking you more time to find it, recover from it, hit out of it. You know, how do we maintain around those new vegetations and things like that. So, so I'm going to pass it on to her, and I would tell you she has a very tough job dealing with me and my strenuous design criteria, so she's going to explain it.
Thank you, Tom. You're not so bad to deal with, really. Up on the board, what I'm going to go over is our landscape concept. And so up there you see the entire golf course. We didn't render the entire golf course, but we took 3 different areas where we have boards over there that relate to the areas. And these are enlargements of representative areas on the course. So that is what I'm going to show to you. So the first one is the northwest corner. And on the west side it borders I-95, and on the north side there are the townhomes. Can I just get this for the next slide? Oh, okay. We'll go to the next slide. We're going to go just that enlargement of the northwest corner. Yes, please. Or you can go to the one that says northwest corner if you want to just go individually. Okay. So as you can see, on the west side there's the I-95, and what we're planning on doing there is creating a buffer visually and also for the sound along I-95. There are very large existing trees all along I-95. In some areas there's not as many, and that's where we're going to be installing trees like green buttonwoods, which are a Florida native tree. They will be tall and give protection in that area, but also give you that nice edge. We've also we're going to have areas of some bamboo, and underneath those taller trees, because you can see them from I-95 if you're driving along, we're going to fill in with understory shrubbery in that area. And then as you go around the course between the tees and the greens, we're going to be planting some more tropical and colorful material between those areas. We're going to keep that consistent, and it'd just be more of a buffer between those 2 types of play. Okay, so then this area here, this this beige area. That's another spot that will be a playable area. And this is, but there'll be a different material, maybe like a crushed coquina or a pine straw area, which won't have to be irrigated, or initially it might be temporarily irrigated, but then you turn it off. So that is one of our sustainability zones. And we'll have some just low wire grass in that area. And we have other areas between the tees and the fairway where we just have tall palm trees and different types of palm trees clustered to separate the two holes also. And we have several lakes on the course. We have more lakes than are there now. I think twice, about 9 acres more of lakes. On those lakes, we're going to have littoral zones. There'll be littoral planting. There'll be a shelf under the water with lots of water plants, which will bring in lots of birds and fish and provide them protection. So that this is representative of the lake and the littoral planting on the sides of the lake. Would you mind the next slide? Let's go to the streetscape and intersection. So with that golf course, we'll be taking all of these ideas and all the plant material and bringing it around to the other holes to keep continuity and consistency. Yeah, that's a slide. So this is the streetscape and intersection. This is Clintmore Road here, and this is 2nd Avenue. And this is the first hole here, ends at the 9th hole. And then this is the tunnel that goes under Clintmore, which would take you up to the 10th hole. So currently at the intersection, we'd like to provide, there's some open space areas that would just be grassy areas. Over here would be the clubhouse eventually. That's the southeast corner of the site. And we want to create a nice entry there, so we would like some pedestrian paving, new palm trees and oak trees along the streets here. And we would like some date palms in the medians along the street, just to, as an accent and something special there right at the entrance. And what's separating these green spaces from the golf course, we have the cart paths. We would create a very nice cart path edge so that when you come up to the first hole, you have a nice experience driving up to it. And also when you're finishing golf, you'll have a nice experience driving back to the clubhouse. We're planning on a tunnel in this area on the south side of the intersection. And that would be another treatment that we would have, this tunnel and that tunnel. It'd be more of a tropical and colorful planting in that area. And we've actually a restroom, there's a restroom area right at the first hole. And what we're planning on doing there, we're going to bring in more animals and planning on some butterfly gardens at the restroom areas. That way it'd be visually nice to look at, but it'll also be more detailed planting so that you can actually get out and walk around and see these more detailed plans. And then along where the golf course meets the street, that buffer will be a little bit more intense. We'll provide some shrubbery to provide some screening from Clintmore Road. Not intense as in a lot, but just shrubbery for separation. Would you mind going to the next slide?
Before you do, one observation, I think it looks great, but it looks to me like you got about 4 trees plus the palm trees, 8 trees in the middle of the city's easement on 2nd Avenue. Wouldn't it be better to put it on the other side of the sidewalk?
The trees in the median right here are existing.
No, I'm talking about right there on 2nd Avenue.
Oh, here?
Yes.
And you're saying put it on the other side of the sidewalk?
Put it on the other side. I mean, there's honestly, if you look at the whole layout, I think there's 2nd Avenue, if you it really should be, you know, 2 full lanes with the median, but for whatever reason it's not. And I would, you know, I don't know if the future may hold that they want to redo that just for traffic purposes, but I wouldn't put new trees in there if they're going to come along and rip them out.
Right, and I do have a meeting with Don Cinca on Wednesday at Municipal Services to also show her the concept and go over those streetscapes, to talk about 2nd Avenue, Clintmore, and then medians.
Yeah, but I would still prefer to have those trees on our side so that no future rips them out.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
they are on your property.
Yeah.
Not the ones, not these right here, but the ones where the golf club used to be are on your property. Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the ones on the east side of 2nd Avenue?
Correct.
By the future golf course?
That right
club
there.
house?
Exactly.
Okay.
Talk to them specifically, you know, is there an easement, what are their plans, I don't know, but
sure.
It's the thought.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very wide swale there. The other side, it's not the same.
Just a quick question regarding that. Were the trees put there for buffering of the clubhouse and the parking area? Was that the original idea, or is it just filler?
The trees at the intersection are we're planning on oak trees and royal palms and nothing very tall, so we would want to keep the views open to the clubhouse and to those open spaces.
Okay. All right. I think Craig's probably right then.
Thanks, that was a big point. Sure. So on the east side of the property, this is where the driving range is, and there's also a short course of a practice short course. These are the railroad tracks to the east, and the condominiums down here. So along the railroad tracks, the driving range, there will be lots of there's going to be lots of grass in there, and they're going to be picking up balls, so we're going to be cleaning out that area. There's a lot of invasives there right now. There's a 100-foot drainage easement in this area. So from the lowest point of that drainage easement west, we're going to be cleaning out all the invasives and creating just a grass slope down to the bottom of that drainage easement. I don't know if it's, is it that out? Yeah. And then to the east of that drainage easement, to the lowest point, wherever we need to fill in trees to screen the railroad tracks, that's what we intend to do. And we intend to use the bald cypress and green buttonwood, again, lots of natives and native shrubbery also, to let it just grow up, nothing that would need to be trimmed. So let it go loose. This is a berm separating the two areas here, and it varies in height from 7 feet high up to 10 foot high. And on top of that berm, as protection, this is kind of a protection area and screening area. We were going to put sable palms, large oaks. We're relocating some of the oaks in that area. And the oaks that we're relocating are very large. They're 50-foot spread, a lot of them, on top of that. No shrubbery in this area, because again, the ball machines will be picking up the balls from the ground, but we would have the taller palm trees and shade trees. And then just along the west edge here, we were going to be a little more playful and add some flowering trees, some smaller flowering trees. So not a whole lot to talk about in that enlargement. But does anyone have any questions so far?
On this concept right here, how likely is it that some crazy person like me who doesn't know where the ball is going to go when she hits it, will it land over in that short game area? So is there any danger right there?
That's why we're creating that berm, and that's why we're using the taller plant material and massing plant material in that area to prevent that.
So how tall will it be with the berm and the big trees?
You're pushing 60, 70 feet.
Okay. You feel it's okay? I trust you.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody wanted to deliberately
turn sideways and try to hit the condos, it may be hard to hit over those trees. If they deliberately try to do it. If you were playing where we're aiming you, I don't see the ball going up and over those.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners?
Just one observation on the railroad tracks. I know that Boca Sailing went to great lengths to put in a very large berm to deaden the sound of the trains going by. And have you put any perspective in? I know you have one berm there, but I don't live there, so I don't know. But I can tell you that having that train go by with a bright line on there seems pretty frequent. And from my perspective, this is the opportunity to deaden that sound as much as possible. So would you consider kind of building up a little bit more of
So that's exactly what we did with the center berm. I have that literally as high as I can get it, where the slopes aren't, where they're mobile. And so so when you think about a high berm and slopes, if you have two, because you're eating up too much space, you'd be better off staying flat and going double high on one. So that's what that center berm is.
The center berm?
Yeah, that center berm it's actually, there's like some 25-foot elevations on that.
Oh.
And then the trees are on top of that.
But that's between the short course and the driving range.
Yes, and that right there is probably a much better way to stop the sound for those condos.
Okay. Well, as long as you're taking into consideration the residents and the sound.
100%.
And then I would say, that Dixie Highway is another part of the, although it's the railroad tracks, I can't visualize and see it, but there is the opportunity for signage, there's the opportunity to make it really dense, and I think it would look far better if it was completely dense along that area, so nothing could be seen and nothing could go out.
So right now, there's a lot of invasors, specifically Australian pines.
Yep.
And we really haven't flushed out, are we going to take out every single Australian pine and then replant, or do we only take out to the ditch? And then we don't really know where, if they fall off exactly all on our property or if they're on their property. So we're kind of we're going to work through that with it.
Well, as part of it, it really should be a comprehensive design. That Dixie Highway, people are going to see that side more than they're going to see, except for the people on 95, but the residents of Boca will see Dixie Highway. And there is a benefit to having a complete screen for all the driving range. And now one golf ball hits over the tracks and into the road.
We're definitely going to give a complete screen, but what I'm saying is we don't know if we need to take out all the Australian pines and recreate the screen, or do we leave a couple rows of the Australian pines and fill them in as we have to take out some of the Australian pines to the west of them?
Yeah, there's clusters of Australian pines, and actually they may not be a desirable tree, but they would do a very good job of screening, and they're also tall, so they would block falls also. So it's if you take them down, you're going to have to put something back up that won't be as tall. They'll take longer to fill in, and you already have something there. So it's.
But then you have the law. Are we required to take them all out? So we're just on.
Are we required to take them all out? No.
Well, sometimes you can phase taking them out.
That's determined by the city.
That's what we need in the city. We're gonna.
But we do intend to create a buffer. We intend to augment whatever we take out. We're going to put something back.
So the 3 sections you have here are just 3 sections. You have other sections that you go section by section?
Well, we have really 17 sheets of paper, but they're not all colored and rendered where you can see exactly what we're doing. So instead of doing the course, we definitely took representational areas where you could get a feel for what we're doing and all over the course.
Okay.
There's really no other situations that would arise. I think on the part 3, it's going to be fairly open on the inside. There won't be a lot of shrubbery. Right. It's going to be just
very playable, just all short grass, and we're just going to do the big existing trees that you can cut under and find your ball and just keep
there's lots of trees, there's lots of topography on that side. It's just pretty good on its own.
I encourage you to take resident input on the sound and, you know, the density, and you certainly have plenty of representatives from the community who will give you feedback.
Right.
So,
I like feedback.
Do you want to say something, Mr. Chairman?
The train, it's not the high speed train, it's the freight train. When that freight train goes down, it runs for at least 5 to 8 minutes. And the noise is extremely, you can't even talk, you just have to stop. So it's very interesting. You need some kind of like a sea grape, something that grows pines, something along that whole border. I'm not saying create a wall or something like that. You need something to block that sound because the volume is really annoying. You can't hear anything in that the train. And they go by about maybe every hour, and they're getting longer and longer. I counted 140 cars last time.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Carol? I want to thank you for all the hard work you're doing. There's more than I ever anticipated, and I know Tom's not hard work. So as you progress and meet with the city, if you would come back to us at some point.
So I'm meeting with Dawn this week, and then we're trying to get an appointment with Nora or her partner Smith at Environmental also. We've reached out to them.
Environmental is very important to us. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
I think there's just, from this point, and we don't expect you to make decisions tonight, but if you can take a look at this in depth and give us your feedback, so that for us the next step is, do we take this concept and break it out into all parts of the golf course? Are you happy with that? Or are there certain things that you'd like to see that maybe this raises some questions or additional thoughts that you may have? Ultimately, that will allow us to go forward, creating an entire plan and construction documents.
That's a very good suggestion, Wayne. Should we put this on our next agenda so that we can all give Carol some more feedback so she can keep going forward?
I think we should put it on the website, if we could do that, so the community can see it.
Would you do that for us? Good idea.
Would you like us to leave the boards to?
Yeah, I really think this needs to go back to the Boca Chica residents, because I think that sound issue is a big deal. And I'm kind of concerned that if we have the opportunity to make it better, this is the time to do it.
So long as we're not wasting any more time, I think that putting it out there, and for those that are interested, I think that we've given Carol the concern we have with the noise over there. The rest of this, I'm good with the concept, and I'm not a landscape architect, and so I'm having to take Carol's advice on where to put the trees and so forth. So I'm comfortable with that aspect of it. If we can do something to deaden the noise for the neighbors over there, it's a win-win for everyone.
I agree.
As far as I'm concerned, let's put it out there, and if the residents have any comments, let's take some action on those immediately to deal with it. And if we want to put it on the next agenda, in case there is some action, we could certainly do that. And I'm ready to move forward with Project Wayne. I don't want to hold you up anymore. I mean, I'm feeling the urgency about it, especially after Mr. Tetrall, because I feel the same way he does. And it's frustrating not getting this project done on the time that we had planned on it. And I think because we've done a very good job in analyzing the plans and making comments, and public response to this has been very positive. I think we just need to keep rolling. That's my feeling.
Okay, commissioners, in your packet, we're going to move to item number 2 of our regular business, the Boca National Assignment of Rights. Mr. Horowitz, would you take the mic, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very briefly, you may recall back in January, the to a litigation effort to remove the gentleman who's squatting on the, I believe it's the southwest corner of the golf course parcel. And in the course of our due diligence reviewing that matter, it came to our attention that the property in question, the parcel in question, actually is owned by the city. You know, we own half of the property, the city owns the other half. So we've been working with the city attorney's office to have them assign their rights to a cause of action to us. We sent them a draft of the document back in January and received a copy of their responses earlier this month. This is essentially the outgrowth of that effort. What it says essentially is that the city is assigning all of their rights to the district in the context of this particular cause of action. There are provisions related to damages to the extent that there are any monetary damages that are awarded. Priority goes to the district to recover any and all costs associated with this effort. If there's physical damage to the property, the city is entitled to recover as it relates specifically to physical damage. And in the event after the district has been made whole, after we've recovered all fees and costs that might otherwise be expended, if there's any residual left over that primarily result from should the district obtain and order a writ of possession that's ultimately enforced by the sheriff, and we move forward with an auction to essentially dispose of whatever materials are out there. If there's any residual left over, the district and the city will split whatever proceeds remain, so long as the district has been made whole. The item is on the city council's agenda for next Tuesday. With your permission this evening, we'd ask for a motion to support the item. Once the council approves the item from their perspective and it's executed, we have a complaint draft that we'll go ahead and file and proceed forward as directed by the board. Thank you.
Do I hear a second? Discussion? All in favor of approving this assignment of rights, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes. Thank you. Item number 3, the swimming racket. Mr. Fischera.
Here he comes.
Commissioners, this is on page 19 of your agenda packet. Actually, page 20.
Okay, Commissioners, VCCO 11 is the general conditions that MDS incurred or will incur because of the additional 2 months of contract time we're going to need to finish the project. So in your package you were given, this was actually an item that was in change order 10, and the commission asked to postpone that item to tonight. I want to explain the general conditions item. So specifically, it is general conditions which are the supervision of the project manager and the superintendent, and also there are some other job-specific items such as the telephone, temporary facilities, sheds, sanitary facilities, safety equipment, and those items are what the contractor expects to have to incur for the extra 2 months of time. So the contract, we had a contract for 365 days, and we also added a great deal of extras to this contract purposely, so they're not overruns. So in that sense, they're extras that we added to the contract. Those items actually added up to 110 days of additional work. MDS chose to put a valiant effort into trying to get all of those additional items within the contract time. If they were able to get it done in the contract time, they would not have charged anymore. But the extra work is taking more time and thus incurs some operating expenses for the extra 2 months. So it's roughly, like, to keep them operating, it's roughly about $15,000 a month. So it's about roughly $30,000. They have it all itemized. They have the supervision, which is the same amount that we were paying them during the 365 contract days. They're asking for the phone expenses and storage and toilets and those kinds of things. So, what are the questions?
Commissioners?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm not too interested in doing this, and maybe you can explain why it's over, but I've gone out there on several different occasions, and I don't see a lot of activity, and why should we pay for your slowness on things? It's up to you to supervise your contractors, your subs, and, you know, I'm a little tired of approving change order after change order, saying, you know, this has got to stop, and so $30,000 on a $500,000 contract, why are you coming to us with that? That just doesn't seem fair to the residents of the city.
Well,
so do you want I don't want you to explain, I don't want them to explain.
Okay.
Because I don't have any interest in this.
Okay, I'll just set it up then. So it's a bit unfair to say that there's not anything going on and that it's unfair for them to charge that extra. So we have a contract with them, and the contract specifically states that for extra work, you pay X amount of dollars, and you grant an extra time. And the change orders that they did provide, they did not add the time for supervision and the general condition costs because they intentionally, hopefully, were able to get it done within the 365 days. There was quite a bit of work that was added, and like I said, that warrants pay for that, for the extra time. So I'm going to let them explain in more detail, but when we do these change orders, we spend a lot of time. We go back and forth with emails. We meet several times. And we hammer out the best deal for the district. So we sit with the architect. When these guys give me prices for extras, if it looks too high, we go back, we find another solution, we find a different subcontractor. So by the time it gets to the commission, it's been hammered out and it's gotten the best deal for the commission. Even the time frames that are given are the best we can do. Construction sometimes looks like there's not a lot going on, but there really is. And they have a construction schedule, and they've been adhering to it to the day.
This was supposed to be done, Mike, you came here and sat and told us this thing was going to be done last summer. Okay, and so the opening date I was expecting last summer, and so it took a little bit longer, and I get it, a few months here and there, but I'd like to hear from them. Let them talk about their construction methods,
Okay.
why they deserve this extra time.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means about being open last summer. The contract is 365 days for 3 buildings, and they were to be done sequentially. That's the way that this contract was let out to them. So the community center was actually going to be last initially, and the community center was going to be last. They asked if we could flip it around, do the community center and the parking lot first, and it's done. So, so I'm not really sure what you mean by that. But I will let them answer whatever other questions you have.
Mike, just one quick question. I know from the architect specs that were released, there were a number of things that were omitted that we had to go back and backfill and revise. I can't remember the specifics, but there's some issues with the fire system in the community center. There were other items there also that we had to have revisions on that were not originally contemplated. So is that what we're talking about? Is that what's resulting in the delay and the extra cost?
Yes, sir. So there were items, for whatever reason, were omitted from the contract and later added back in. There are 2 playgrounds. One of them is a pretty complex water feature playground, splash pad they call it. So there are items such as all the low voltage in the 3 buildings were not in the contract, which meant that I actually had to sit down with the IT department and find out exactly what the needs were for all of the employees, and then we have to get plans, then it has to go out to bid, and then I have to come in there and get a change order approved before we can start it, and then you have to go to the city and get a permit for a revision. So all of those things were very time consuming, and they add length to the contract. If you had everything ready, you could expect, or fully expect, the project to finish on time and under budget. But when you change and you add and you modify, there's some give and take. And as commissioners, you are fully obligated to the people to make sure that you're spending wisely. And in a construction situation like this, there's been no downtime. There's been no wasteful time. There's been no wasteful spending, in my opinion. As a consultant, so in my opinion, I haven't seen any of that. I think this group that you picked as a contractor has been very fair and above board. And like I said, we go through all of these items before we ask for any more money. We go through it line by line and get the best deal possible. So with that.
Mike, would you introduce the gentleman from NDS?
My name is James Bauman. I'm the owner and president of NDS Builders. I have here with me Ken Gallagher, who is the project manager for the project. Kevin has got the majority of the details, but I'd like to address the concern here. We are certainly not an adversary here. We are a team player that we find integral, necessary to complete this thing on the city and the district's behalf. We have been transparent, accountable. This is not a means and methods issue in terms of construction for where we are today. This has got a lot to do with permitting, weather, design. So this is not a finger pointing. We're trying to be as open and transparent and look at the value and look what we can do to help bring the finish and get this in there to go on. And we're trying to do that in everyone's, on everyone's behalf and in the best interest, financially. So, all along, we've been a team player from the very get-go. We've been proactive in trying to come up with solutions in terms of the design, what we can do to help critical path towards completion. So, I'm not sure where the idea of maybe angst is here, but this is certainly we're only looking for something actual that is a cost to us. Could be much worse contractually what we can come and ask for here, but we're coming asking for really what those costs really are, which is a lesser amount. So Kevin has the details, but I just wanted to bring that up to y'all.
Good evening. Like Jim was saying, if we follow the letter of the contract and came to this point and throughout the project, we're asking for contractually, deserved general conditions and supervision costs for those 110 days of delay, it would be about $85,000. So very early on in the project with Mike and our office, we looked at it and said, okay, we'll see where we are at a critical point in the project and see where we can project this to finish in time. And a lot of the time we projected it to be a couple days within that year, but then R5's design changes and subsequent permitting issues really, really put difficult goals in front of us because we had no control over those things. Still to this day, one of the issues that was brought up on the back of the building regarding elevations and all the stairs and access points was brought up in February of last year, and it still to this day hasn't been in front of the community appearance board for approval. So we're working on that right now at our risk, that it may go in front of the board tomorrow night and they say, no, you need to change this isn't right. Something could happen. So we could have sat back and said, well, we're not doing anything until it's 100% approved. So that's why Jim was saying, in the team effort here, we're doing everything we can to get to a point of being compliant with the city, the building department, as well as the contractor, and still watching out for the district's budget and operation of the facility at the same time. So I've got lots of schedules with critical path delays, lots of graphs, lots of fancy stuff that I could bring out here, but the bottom line was we projected 110 days of delay. We ate up everything that we could and got it down to about 40 days, and that's where we think we're now to complete the project. So, and this is actually a $0 change order. These funds are coming generated from savings and contingencies that were within the project already, so it's not added to the cost of the contract. And there's still $47,000 within that contingency after this change order, after this adjustment. So,
would you explain the permitting issues?
Well, one of the commissioners already said it, that, the things in here move very slowly. They're, very earlier in the meeting, and it's just I don't know if they're very busy or what the problem is. And we've had the advantage of having Mike on our side to help walk through some of the, hoops and hurdles that we've had to go through, but it's just been very difficult to get approval in an expedited amount of time. Revisions take a month to 6 weeks just to get approved. And when we're, trying to get things done, we can do everything we want to do, but until that drawing is approved, the inspector won't let you move on. So a lot of times we'll have it done, have it ready, and wait for that stamp from the building department. Once we get that stamp, the inspection can go, and then we can move forward. So it's a lot of hurry up and wait, unfortunately. So, that's
a lot of those things, affect and are on a critical path, especially now where we are at the tail end of the project to get wrapped up. So we're trying to do what we can to mitigate any delay to the critical path in wrapping up. So, that's where our effort and focus has been on what can we do, how can we be proactive, what can we do, what can we spoon feed the building department, what can we do to help, get through. And at some point, our hands are tied, and unfortunately, like Karen said, we can't go any further until we get the final approvals. We're taking all the right necessary steps, getting there, and it's just, getting that final okay from the building department. So it's been very difficult. And we've tried to, like I said, we've tried to mitigate the damage all the way through the project. And, this is just unfortunately where we are.
Do you still anticipate April 30th as the date when it will be completely finished?
As of right now, yeah. But like I said, the community appearance board, I don't think they will reject anything that's in that, but it's not stands smart.
And that's
smart,
yeah. Commissioners?
Yeah. So when you price a change order, does that not include all your supervision and everything in it?
It does not. Overhead and profit is overhead costs, office personnel, paper clips, paper.
I thought there was a 10% charge on everything, so if you have a subcontractor, that's what's in the exchange order. So.
Well, that's overhead, which I was explaining is the office stuff and our profit. There are general conditions and supervision, which are costs of work, actual costs of work. The profit is the reason everybody.
And that is for the contract.
Yeah.
That's what those breakdowns are.
So the 10% that you see on there could have been another supervision costs at X number of hours times 15% on every single change order that we did not put in there because we didn't want to treat $90,000 at this point when we didn't need $90,000. We only need $22,000 to get to the end.
Where are you taking these? You're saying you're taking it out of a contingency adjustment 6 and 9. Is that change order 6 and 9? You're assuming the contingency for yourself?
No, the contingency belongs to the district. It's if there's anything left after the project is over, we deduct the change order, go back into your pockets, to the city's pockets, most pockets. During the development of the Boca Tika demo, there was a contingency in there for unknowns. So some of the unknowns we needed some money for, and some of the stuff that we projected we needed money for, we didn't, so we put it back into that contingency to use on the rest of the project.
So is this taken out of Boca Tika, the 740 or 730,000 for demolition of Boca Tika?
Correct.
Are you intending to complete the work that is out there at Boca Tika, which is removal of the squatters' property?
Well, this is part of this is from that. So that was.
So we will absorb that cost, whatever that might be. We don't know what it is, but you priced it into your contract the first time through.
Correct.
And if we agree to that contingency, then when we do get the squatter out of there and we ask you to come back, it's going to be repriced as a new project.
Repriced as a new project or asked if there's any money left in the contingency and then what it would need to.
Yeah, I think address the contingency, the value of the contingency at that time. Obviously, any pricing exercise that would go on would be over and above for the gap, if there's a gap in the contingency. If the contingency is enough, then obviously it's not there.
For that reason alone, I don't want to do it. I mean, I'd rather get everything removed at Boca Tika, that's what we priced it for, and not have to do it. The second part of it is, you're asking for $29,000 for supervision and overhead. That's part of the project, part of doing your job. This is a $3.995 million couple buildings out there, and it's going to a $5.4 million project. Granted, you got to take the $700,000 out for the other things. Granted, there's been a whole bunch of things that have said, from the flooring to the handicap accessible things. I don't know where all these things seem to have gotten lost. It's just a little disappointing. But we, in good faith, approved all these change orders one after another with the intent that we were approving the full amount of what was needed to be complete these projects. Not to come back with an after the fact that it needs extra money.
So I don't think this is after the fact. I think this has been transparent throughout the course of the project. And had this been done, and had we been able to finish within our contract time, we wouldn't be having the discussion. So those things that we're talking about here are out of our control. We're trying to be very transparent and open and proactive in trying to help with the dollars. So, for you to assume that this is a delay on our part is not correct.
Okay, I know that we're standing here in mid-March, but these items were discussed, projected, put into writing, and put forth in front of the stakeholders in early November of last year, knowing this was coming. So this, if it's a surprise, I'm sorry to hear about that, but this was identified several months ago.
I'm a little confused here. This was put in front of us last November. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the discussions with the stakeholders started in November.
November.
Yeah.
And did you put a price tag on what we were going to be doing at that point, or is this a culmination from then to now?
This change order started back in November. I think this is the same time value that it was back then. So, yeah, this dollar value hasn't changed.
Okay, and we approved this change order back in November?
I did not know.
No. So, where are we now? Where is it? You're saying you apprised us that this expense was coming?
Correct.
Okay. And now here it is. What dollar, is this the dollar amount you gave us back then?
What could have been would have been based on the 110 days.
No, it was 32,250 roughly back then.
Okay, and now it is, hold on a second. They're taking up contingency out. Yeah, okay. It seems like, and I'm not placing blame.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. But it seems like every time you turn around on this project, there's been another change order. And I have to be very honest with you, what really stuck in my throat back about 6 months ago and still sticks in my throat is $3,500 to repaint a kiddie pool. Okay? That was bundled in with a whole bunch of stuff, and John knows what I'm talking about. And, you know, it's just like one after another after another. And I understand where Commissioner Ernst was coming from. Frankly, right now, I don't know what to think. You know, it's appearance board, there's permitting, there's all these things. But we knew we had to go through these things from the get-go. We knew the city was slow from the get-go. And this just wasn't built in. So, I said my piece. Yeah. Okay. And going forward, whether it's this contract or any future contracts, we got to figure out a better way to do this.
Well, from what I'm hearing, I hear both sides, and it seems like the work was legitimate. It seems like the expenses were required to complete the work. And Jacob, I'd ask you a question, given the nature of this discussion. Are we obligated to accept this change order or no, legally?
Before I answer that question, I'd like an opportunity to review the contract, which I've not yet seen.
Good response. I've been dealing with our building projects for a long time, and I've seen a lot of cost overruns and a lot of delays, which cause those cost overruns, delays in permitting, and I'm sensitive to what you're saying. I'm hearing our consultant we hired to oversee the job, Mike Teixeira, saying that this was legitimate work and done in a timely fashion. And I'm having a hard time reconciling the fact that we should or should not, go forward with this. I understand where Mr. Engel and Commissioner Ernst are coming from, but I think I really think we need to honor this change order. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes, having to wait for the city to give you permits and then holding up and missing the contract dates. That's understandable. So I, for one, am in favor of going forward and approving the purchase order, change order.
Commissioners, should we give Mr. Horowitz time to review the contract and bring this up on April 1st?
Yeah. I understand the need and the desire to get done with the project. So I think let's do two things. One, let's let Dave have an opportunity to look at the contract relative to everything. Number two, I think I do agree with Bob's point that we did hire Mike to oversee it. We have an obligation to listen to what Mike is saying, and I hear you on that. So, but I think I'll give you also an opportunity to go back and take a look at what's been there. But I am a little bit more concerned about the contingency, removing the demolition of everything at Boca Chica. From our perspective, that work still has to be done, and there is a question of when that's going to be done. And we always kind of viewed that as a separate thing, and we probably should have never put it on you to bid and do everything. But when you remove $30,000 out of that contract, I just don't want to find out later it's $80,000 to remove and tear down whatever's out there in Boca Chica that needs to be done. And I think that, to me, that's the more important thing. I value Mike with his oversight role, and just if you could give us all a moment to think through that one, and you continue on with where you're at, we can discuss this at the next meeting.
Just so you know, the removal of the maintenance building and scope there, the dollar values represented in the contingency, includes the removal, disposal, sodding, fencing, temporary irrigation, a lot of things that we had to do for the very public locations along Second that may not be needed over there. So looking at what really needs to be done, versus what the budget was there that was put back into that contingency, is definitely something we can look at to still get the buildings down in a way and the safety hazard going, but you may not need the temporary irrigation or the geosol put down, or we can definitely look at what needs to be done versus
I think at this point we need to step back and take a look at that and hear what council has to say and give you an opportunity to take a look at the cost on maintenance and see where we are. I don't know that there's votes to approve this evening, so I think if we come back to our first meeting in April. And I don't want to hold you guys up, that could prevent you from doing any additional work. So we want this project to get done. And I trust what our consultant Mike is saying to us is correct and something we should move on. And I would still support that, but I think this time we have some reservations with some of the commissioners. I think we need to step back and get another look at it.
This will also give Commissioner Wright the opportunity to review everything and be able to vote on this.
And Commissioners, the idea about the contingency, it wasn't the contractors necessarily. I talked to staff and we thought it might be an opportunity to have a zero or a net zero when it comes to the increase in this contract. And also at the time, it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, we didn't see any movement on the legal issue with the shed. So now it looks like there may be some a window of opportunity, or at least there may be some clear path to get that building vacated. But there isn't an unlimited amount of time either. I mean, the permits with the city will expire. Also, the contractor the demolition contractor is off-site, so we got to bring the demolition contractor back. So it's not an unlimited amount of time, but if there's any way to do it all together in one contract, that's the preferable way. But you may have to consider taking that out of the contract and closing all of these and going back and doing it as a separate project.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. Commissioners, we come to item number 4 on your packet, the interim executive director ratification of Exhibit A. It's found on page 23 of your packets. Mr. Horowitz, would you like to address the change that has been made in that?
Sure, Madam Chair.
Just remove the benefits and also after deleting letter B, everything moved up 1.
There was also some discussion, I believe, and I know that Sam was at the last meeting regarding an annual performance review, which was in fact included within the underlying contract, so there was no need to amend the job description to contemplate that particular event. But as Ms. Harms indicated, we did remove the superfluous language at the end regarding the provision and address benefits also separately addressing the underlying agreement.
Commissioners, have you had a chance to review this so that we can have a motion to approve?
The corrections address the issue I had with the suspension, and I'm satisfied that this is an adequate job description, and I'll make a motion to approve.
Everyone in favor of approving the amendment to Brianne's contract, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joe. Thank you. Okay. Important things. The approval of the photocopy machine. It's found on page 26 in your packet. Brianne?
Commissioners, Joanne worked to get several different quotes. We're asking tonight for your approval. We desperately need a photocopy machine. We're making a lot of copies of stuff. And I don't know if anybody's ever had to wrestle. The one we have now was bought in 2009, so it's definitely served its purpose. We'd like to purchase a new one. We feel like that would be the best way to go with Dex Imaging. The purchase price is $5,540.07, and then we'd also like to engage them for $25 a month for service. So $300 a year for a service agreement. So if we have issues, they show up and they fix it, and then we move on.
So your recommendation is that
Dex.
there was another quote that was much higher.
There was, yes, Joanne worked with a bunch of different people to get some different quotes, but Melissa's had some personal experience working with Dex, and they were very responsive, so she also gave her personal input on that too, and we definitely want somebody responsive, so when we have issues, they come out, and it's faster than the other machines. It does 40 sheets per minute, and we're going to get color copies at a lower rate as well, as part of the agreement.
Is it a purchase or is it a lease?
It's a purchase, so in the service agreement, it includes up to 4,167 copies, so part of that is ink and things like that come out of it, will be part of that agreement.
Just one other, I'm in favor of this.
Yes.
But just as a point of procedure, what is the maximum allowed under this regulations or under our purchasing regulations? What's the maximum allowed for go out with that? That's my only concern.
We have to get quotes when things are over 5,000. Well, this was just barely over 5, so we did get the number of quotes needed to make it competitive.
Yes. Is this the motion? Yes. Second.
The only discussion I have is moving it. Are we going to, is that part of the agreement that they will move it from Sugar Sand Park to the new office?
They'll do one additional time. They'll deliver it here.
We probably just have to plan on doing it for 17 as one Friday, so we'll plan. So maybe it's a little bit and kind of set up and
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of the photocopier, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. You got your copier, Joanne. And I agree, it's a difficult thing to manipulate. All right. Let's see where we are. Mr. Ernst, you're up.
Okay, for approval of the minutes, there was a revision. There's one item that was added since your agenda packet. It's for $703 for a application fee. So the total request for approval of minutes is approval of the payments is $293,502.62. Well, it goes back to a bunch of them here.
Discussion? All in favor of approving the invoices, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joanne. Okay. Leanne.
Most of my items have been mentioned already. Just to recap, on the joint meeting with the City Council, I spoke with Susan Saxton. definitely keep May 13th blocked out on your calendars because it's looking more likely that that will be the date of the joint meeting, and they're going to try to workshop the golf project on April 22nd. We are scheduling to move on April 17th, so we'll have movers come and take the things that we have here over there. We have Comcast ready to go, so we're going to have good internet service. We're very excited about that, and obviously the brand new photocopy machine, so we'll be ready to roll. Hopefully, very quickly over there, we're working with city staff because Swim Rocket Center was going to be wrapped up April 30th. We'd like to look at a grand opening in May, so if you guys can check your schedules and see about a Saturday morning that you may have available that will work for you. We'd like to schedule something for the community to come over and check out the new building, and also for you all to welcome them there. And that's everything I have.
Mr. Koski, do you have anything about the golf course you'd like to share?
Madam Chair, I think you can tell from the presentation this evening by Price Fazio Sub-Consultants that they are putting forth yeoman's effort on this. I'd say we're approximately 100% complete on all the schematic drawings. Wayne has started some of the construction drawings, and Tommy, I think, has also started some of the technical specifications to be included in the bid package. We are mindful of the issue relating to the closure of Boca Municipal and the opening of Boca National. So what we're trying to do on our end is seeing if there's any way that we can compress that time where there would be no golf in Boca down to a minimum. And we are looking at possibly altering the mechanism for the procurement of the contractor for this project by including the qualification sections in the actual bid document rather than having a separate request for qualifications. I think we could probably save a month or maybe 2 months by procuring under that scenario. With regard to what the city's plan is with respect to closure of the Boca Muni course, I will be meeting tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. with the city manager, and I'll try to get as much information as possible on the anticipated closing date, and I will notify everybody by email of the results of that meeting. Wayne continues to put in a great deal of effort here. We're pretty well set on the layout of the golf course. What you see on your handout today and what we delivered to your marketing brochure, the sales brochure that was delivered to the city 2 weeks ago, is pretty much it. And for everybody's information, the cost of the golf course and the driving range in the par 3 is still estimated at the original amount of $10,500,000. So we're working also diligently, not only to expedite the project, but also to keep the price in line with the original estimates.
Craig?
Art, is it possible that through some of the pre-qualifications of the suppliers, can you use any of these golf carts to other things off the Florida list to avoid the biddings that's already pre-negotiated by the state for us?
Certainly anybody that's on the Florida vendor list would help, but I think it's a determination of what we can use. For example, I believe, and Wayne, throw something at me if I'm wrong, but in our pricing of this project, we have $2.3 million worth of equipment that we're going to be required to purchase. A lot of that equipment still is potentially over at Boca Municipal, and it may very well be that a great deal of that equipment can be reused at Boca National without impacting the quality of the golf course. So that's something we're going to continue to pursue. But with regard to buying off the vendor list, we just got through a discussion with NDS. The best way to get the best price is by soliciting a low bid. And those low bidders can probably buy at a cheaper price than even people on the vendor list, on the state vendor list. The state vendor list is there for convenience, not necessarily for pricing. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Does anybody else have a question for Mr. Costa? Moving forward, Melissa?
Good evening. I'll be brief to the point that you'd like me to, and then you can just ask questions if you have any. But it's my pleasure to give you an update on the facilities and with a new copy machine. Who knows, maybe I'll make copies for you guys in the future. Just kidding. So anyhow, moving forward with the Sugar Sand Park chiller coil replacement is scheduled tentatively for April 18th and 19th. They're confirming that the chiller coil will be here and available at that time, and as long as it is, that is the tentative schedule date for that. Sugar Sand Park Science Playground, the roll coat and the additive inserts will go March 26th through Friday, March 29th. That's of course with weather withstanding, because they cannot do that during rain and have that roll coat adheres to the surface. But that's what that's tentatively scheduled like, and we have worked with the individuals here at Sugar Sand Park to make sure that's advertised on the Facebook page through all the meetings to get the word out that the park will be closed. That is after spring break for Palm Beach County. Patrick Park Tennis Courts, we had a meeting, a pre-work meeting with Armor Courts and the staff at the tennis center. The staff at the tennis center chose the colors. They're going to stick with the same color theme that's out there now. And the work is, again, tentatively, but it is scheduled to begin April 8th and should take about 9.5 to 10 weeks to complete that project. The artificial turf, we continue with our meetings. We did obtain a permit from the city of Boca. It did take us 7 weeks to get our permit when there wasn't a lot involved in those drawings to go over. We're working now to set up the pre-construction meeting with the Public Works Division. That's the application that Sheriff Person signed this evening for us, and that's what the $703 was for the application for Public Works. However, that is not holding up work right now. The construction fences have gone up. Parts of the construction fences were put down in a more permanent area, but if you go by, you'll see there were parts of it that were also put up with sandbags and temporary so that they can move that in and get access back as needed on the westernmost portion of that where the baseball and softball season is still going on. In the meantime, what they've been doing is they've sprayed the southern fields. They're going to start, as I mentioned before, on the southernmost field, southernmost fields. They sprayed those fields to kill the grass. And they actually started when I was over there today, coming up with the bulldozers and stuff to start bringing up the grass on the southeast field. And they have also been tagging the trees. We're doing a lot of tagging the trees evidently on projects here, but tag the trees that will be removed and relocated as part of this project. So we're moving along on the artificial turf projects as well. The Red Reef restrooms, I had to miss, I had another meeting set up when they had the pre-con meeting for the north restroom, so I was able to make it. Will be at the rest of the meetings, but they did get their permitting completed on that, so I'm expecting that they're moving forward with the notice to proceed. I will have an update with that, get that information to you by Friday. And the central restroom is progressing as scheduled. There's no delays so far. What we talked about in our last meeting is that the restroom probably will not be available for Easter sunrise service. But the areas around it will be cleaned up and decorated up, and the city's well aware of that in advance so they can make other arrangements. This company is still going to try to work to try to see if they can meet a deadline and try to get that done, but with the contract they had, it was not going to be done on those dates. They have finished the accessibility sidewalk over there and are working to it had to do some RFIs because there was a little bit of a problem with some erosion control that has to be done. A little bit of that sidewalk washed out, so that's where we're at the restroom. The Gumbo Limbo pumps, there has been some movement, but not enough to really see. We're going as the turtle goes. And with the pumps, the Army Corps of Engineers, as my understanding, has come through with their permit. So now the last people we're waiting on is the Florida, the Fish and Wildlife Commission.
And when I spoke to Jennifer last week, she's hopeful that that would be wrapping up very soon and that we would be able to put this out, then therefore be able to bid the project quickly. Shortly after that. Gumbo Limbo Boardwalk and Towers, the tower is still on hold, and they are still working on the piling, substruction, railings, and they were supposed to get in last week the metal mesh that goes along the sides to keep kids from going over the sides of the boardwalks, and so that was supposed to come in, and they're going to start installing that. So that's pretty much an update.
Melissa, can we notify the people involved who will be having sunrise services that there will not be, possibly will not be restrooms available?
There'll be restrooms available, what type, but the city is definitely on that, but I will follow up with the city to make sure.
Thank you.
Melissa, your comment there at Patch Reef about Public Works, are we being held up because of the permit from them?
Nothing at this time is being held up on them. Depends on when we end up getting it back. At this time, nothing is, because we're still in the killing and the mobilization of getting all the equipment and et cetera.
Okay. Have they expressed an opinion as to how much time they'll need to review this pretty simple project?
They have not. I talked to the lady. She was, unfortunately, she was out sick for a couple of days last week, but I talked to her directly on Friday. Super nice. She told me, I'm taking the check and the application over tomorrow to hand deliver. And she told me as soon as she had that information from me, she would rush it on her part. The next person it goes into is some plan reviews that our architect engineer will have to submit online. I've already talked to him Friday and today, and he is ready to submit as soon as he gets that information and has the civil drawings ready to go. So I don't know an estimated time just yet, but I'm tracking on it, and so is our architect engineer.
Okay, well, I want you to stay on top of this as you apparently seem to be doing. We don't want to have a conversation with CRC like we did with NDS. And we have, this project has to be completed on time because of the recreational needs of the community. And it also has to be completed on budget or under budget because of our fiscal needs.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
District Council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I look at that. Appreciate it.
Right.
Only one item. In today's Sun Sentinel, there was an article about shade that they're installing in the Miami-Dade park system, and they're using solar panels as shade thing. So I'll pass it on to Joanne to route to everyone, but it might be something that we should reconsider is to get more shade in another way of doing it.
Steve?
Yeah. Actually, I have a question for council. This harkens back to the earlier public comments on Ocean Strand. And I'm playing devil's advocate here. I don't want anybody for a second to think that I'm advocating the sale of Ocean Strand. But if a public property were to be sold, such as Ocean Strand, would there be anything to stop the buyer when he resells? And just about every piece of commercial property in the state of Florida has had multiple owners. Would there be anything to prevent the second owner from taking the beach property and making it private, or somehow developing it or using it for other purposes?
Let me try to respond. Just a couple observations given the inquiry and the discussion from earlier. I just want to make one point very clear. Nothing will happen with that property without this board's approval. So just so we're all clear, any proposal, anything that ultimately comes forward will require the approval of this particular board in order to sell the property that the district owns. Just wanted to state that for the record. Secondarily, and I haven't done any due diligence on the property because much like several of you, we haven't seen a proposal either. So we're not aware of anything that's specifically floating out there in the context of sale or future development. To the extent that there was a buyer out there, we would obviously do title work. There may be some restrictive covenants on the parcel. The gentleman earlier mentioned a city ordinance that provided certain restrictions on development. any future buyer would take subject to those restrictions. And if there were covenants that restricted certain types of development on the property, they would take subject to those restrictions. Now again, there are provisions and process by which some restrictions under certain circumstances may be amended, but we're a long way from that process. And without having any buyer proposal or anything concrete to evaluate, that would prompt us to do some due diligence. I don't have any definitive answer for you with the exception of all of those caveats I just offered.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a few comments. I meant to ask Mr. Koski, but I'll just affirm that we are still looking at a world-class golf course at Boca National. There was somebody that was questioning that statement earlier, but we're still on target for that, correct, Art?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The other thing is that I think it was mentioned by Mr. Ernst to put the landscape design on our website, and I think the easel should stay here in our commission room across the hall for the public, those who want to take a closer look at it. And there was just one comment. I had an email that I forwarded to Brianne from a parent who had tried to use Statue Fields before 2:30 without a permit. It was he and his son were out there kicking the ball around, and they were asked to leave the fields. And so I'm hoping, Brianne, you'll follow up and find out what we can do to remedy that situation, unless you already have an answer.
I spoke with city staff today about it. They're going to look at changing the sign so that they match one of the other parks where it says a certain number of people. If it's a large group, you get a permit. And they're also reviewing with all the staff at that particular park to make sure they understand that if two people are out there playing a game, that they are not to be asked to leave the fields unless it's dangerous for them to be out there. Like if some chemicals just spray, but it shouldn't be an issue.
Thank you very much. You know, you'll make a hero out of me in response to one concerned citizen about that. And it's been an ongoing issue that we've had to deal with. You know, when the parks are closed, Patch Reef was shut down, says no play, then there's no place for these for the community to go and recreate. Just a small group of father, son, or parent and family want to go out and do some outdoor activities. So thank you for taking care of that. And I think that's all I have to say tonight. A good question. At the last meeting, I was asked, and the commission consented to allow Brianne and I to engage in conversation with Ryan Alpert, the deputy AD at FAU, regarding continuation of our ILA on Glades Road. I'm happy to report that we received a favorable audience. They did agree that they would allow us to extend the contract. The first offer was for a 10-year agreement. And further, they affirmed the fact that if we were interested in the football practice field, which is located behind Oxley, that would accommodate one large soccer field and two fields that would accommodate 5v5 play. So the response was very favorable. We have a great partnership with Florida Atlantic University, and I believe the next step is we asked them to put together some kind of their legal is going to have to put together the contract. They're the ones that designed that, and then send us something for us to review and comment on. But the door is open if we're interested in continuing that contract, which we are, because of the growing nature of the population in our community, of those that are recreating and those that will come to fill in all the apartments and condominiums that are being built. So I'm happy to report that we should have something, in the next 30 days. Our ILA does run out September of 2020. So timing was really appropriate right now to get that done and take that off of our checklist of things we have to worry about.
I have just a couple of questions. We have a unit that we're paying for over at Boca Storage, and I have been by there numerous times, and somebody is supposed to be doing maintenance work over there, and I never see a soul. Is there a way that we can get that person to come to one of our other facilities?
actually are on top of that. Melissa's been working with staff, and we've had this storage unit that we've been paying rent on, and somebody is working on our mowers and things like that in there. I've asked Melissa to work with city staff and get in, because we own so much property. We have a brand new maintenance building at Swindon Racket Center to get in out of that, so we will continue to pursue that. Thank you.
And Mr. Koski, I think you probably have a history of this. To what extent are we obligated to improve the intersection of Yamato and 2nd Avenue at that entrance?
Under the purchase agreement, we are obligated to maintain one of the corners, which I believe is the northwest corner of the intersection of Yamato and 2nd Avenue. And as a matter of maintenance of the area as a whole, we will also maintain the northeast corner and utilize that for potential signage for Boca National and just beautification of the entranceway into the entire neighborhood. And we are coordinating the Northwest with the owners of the San Remo condominium, and we're working with, I talked to Mr. Chaffee today about the eastern section, so we're going to get him plans for each of those areas. They have been done by Mr. Thornborough already, and we're just trying to work out what's acceptable to everybody.
Is there a dollar amount we're obligated?
No, it's just to maintain it.
Just to maintain, because
cut the grass.
San Remo has a different idea.
Well, we are going to beautify it, there's no question. Just a question of what each party considers beautification. Seems to be a difference of opinion right now. But I think they will come to an agreement. San Remo has asked for a more simplistic type of landscaping of their corner, and I think we're happy to oblige. Wayne has been working